Alright, what's going on, guys? So as titled by the video, we're going to be changing out the rear shock absorbers on a Ford Fusion Sport. However, this will apply to the Lincoln MKZ or probably the Continental as well with the electronically dampened suspension. And for the Ford Fusions and MKZs without that setup, it'll probably be very similar because most of the parts are likely going to be interchangeable. But first, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to unbolt this wheel. If you have a Fusion Sport or I believe the MKZs, they're going to have the M14 size studs. But anyways, we're going to zip these lug nuts off and then we're going to pull this wheel off. And then after that, we'll raise the car up in the air so we can get to what we need to. Alright guys, so our wheel has been zipped off and not a bad time to inspect your tires and everything like that. But next, if you have a regular Ford Fusion without the electronic suspension, you don't have to worry about this step. But if you have this guy right here, this is a ride height sensor. So we're going to want to unbolt this bolt. That way we don't damage the sensor because these arms are plastic and we don't want to break them. Alright, so I got here in my hand, I got a 10mm bolt. And as you can see, this fits right on there. So we're going to get this unbolted. That way we don't damage the sensor. Alright, so I actually went ahead and raised the car because I'm using a 2-post lift. If you're using jack stands and whatnot, that's fine. Your jack points for your lift are going to be right here in these big cutouts. You can also look and find this arrow. That'll tell you where they are. And then these smaller cutouts are for your stand. So just keep that in mind. But either way, you're going to need to support this lower control arm. So I got this screw jack just to put some pressure on it. That way this big old spring doesn't go flying out and hit anything. Alright, and just like that, our ride height sensor bolt is out. Oops, and I dropped it. If yours looks like this and there's no corrosion, you're probably good to reuse it. We do have some new hardware for the rest of this stuff, but for this guy, it's not that important. And as you see, this little notch right here, that lines up into this hole right there to help you get it aligned. And then this hole on the right is for the main bolt. So our next step, we're going to want to go, if you follow this little valve, there's our wire to actually like electronically dampen it. We're going to want to remove all this. So this guy is rubber and it mounts right onto our shock absorber. But then if you follow it up, there's a bunch of little clips and grommets. So we're going to want to get all those unplugged. And then it's actually connected kind of in a tough to reach spot, kind of right up there, right next to our half shaft. So we're going to want to get all these disconnected, and then we can move on to the next step. So to get these little clips out like I just did this one, a little fork looking tool like this helps. Don't worry about damaging the grommets because the new shock comes with all new ones attached to the wire. Alright, so after a long struggle trying to get this sensor out, I found the best way is get you a long screwdriver like this, and then just kind of, you can go up in there and press down on it, and then what I basically had to do is I think I reached my hand in through this little CV shaft hole, and I could get it and kind of pull on it. Luckily on the end, where is our sensor? On our sensor right here, there is a little guy you can like use as a grip point. But yeah, push down on it and then just inspect that you didn't bust this little tab on the end off. Otherwise you'll have problems because it won't lock in there. But now that this is off, we can lower the car down and begin to remove the bolts for our actual shock absorber. Alright, so for this step, I've actually opted to lower my car back down pretty low. I have a high lift stand. If yours has a different head than this one, or a little bit smaller, that should work fine. But I couldn't seem to get it anywhere on the control arm that I felt was safe. So I went ahead and just put a floor jack with a wide puck underneath this control arm to kind of keep the spring all intact. But then anyways, that's going to bring us to our next step where we're going to go under here. And we have 1, 2 bolts. And then the shock will be free from beneath. Make sure that this is secure before you go and unzip any of these bolts, because you do not want this spring to go flying anywhere. Alright guys, so you see these two bolts right here and here. These are going to be 15 millimeters, and we're going to go ahead and unzip them real quick. Alright, so two lower bolts are out, again 15 millimeters, and as you see these are the factory ones. They have some blue Loctite applied. But yeah, once I got them unbolted with the 1/2 inch, I could use my little electric ratchet here. These actually aren't too corroded, came out fairly easy. But now those are out of the way, we're going to move up top to our strut mount. We just have 1, 2 bolts, and then after that we have just a bolt, or the nut on top. Might want to go ahead and clean up all this. I'm going to do that before we go and unbolt it, but we'll show you all how to do that. Alright guys, so these are going to be 18 millimeters, so they fit right on there. And then just be careful, just grab hold of it, because once we get these mount bolts out, the shock is going to want to drop loose. But it actually might not, because this is so caked on there from all the miles. But we're going to unzip these, and we'll show you what to do next. Alright guys, just like that, old mount is out, and like I said, mine was pretty caked in there. But one thing you will want to do is when we go to install the new mount, I'm not reusing any of this. I got all new parts. Only part I'll reuse is this little cap that goes over top the nut. But after being almost 9 years old, there's not too much rust on here. But yeah, we'll show you what to do next. It'll apply if you're transferring over your bump stop and your mount. And then as always, I'll include the part numbers for this video, but let's go get to it. So to get the dust cap off, I just kind of put a little screwdriver on here and it popped off really quick. As you can see, it did its job well. It's very shiny and clean in there, so we'll be transferring over that to the new one. Alright, so for this step, you're going to want a bench vise, and basically I put it this way, so if you were to put this in the car, this would be the back side. So basically what that ensures is, I'll take the old one here. It just helps that make sure this valve isn't being like forced on. That way it just stays nice and straight. That way we don't risk damaging it, because these are very expensive. I'm swapping out this bump stop and the bellow as well. And also you got to get a new nut for this, because it has nylon, so you cannot reuse these. For the bump stop, the part number, I got it right here. It is DG9Z5K570A, and if you ordered full stuff or set for everything, one way to tell the rears and the fronts is the front is a little bit wider, more stubby. Also, the rear ones are made in Japan, whereas the ones for the front struts, they're made in the US. So it's another way you can tell. And then the bellow, it's just a piece of plastic, whereas for the fronts, it's rubber. So we'll show you how to get all these installed. But basically, you take your bellow, and then you take the bump stop, and then it should just kind of slide in there. Alright, so for the next step, what you want to do, what you can do is, it's optional, but if you take a little bit of dielectric grease, since it's waterproof, doesn't react with anything, you put a little bit of layer around this. That way when you go to put this in your mount, you don't have to worry about it making any unwanted noise. So I'm going to do that real quick. Also forgot to give the part number for the bellow, but it is going to be DG9Z18159A. Then at this point, you can take your new strut, make sure you have the right side. So we're doing the left side, and they'll put a number right there. It says L, and then I believe stamped into the metal somewhere. Yep, right there. It says L, and the other one will say R for right. So you can go ahead, undo this rubber band holding on all of our wires and stuff. And then just be careful when you're doing all this not to damage that valve again. But yeah, so then that'll be loose, and then we can go ahead, transfer everything over, and then I'll show you how to get the nut on, since the strut rod will want to spin on you. Alright, so it looks like I will be reusing my old bellows, because the new ones, they're just not as wide as the old ones, so they wouldn't fully compress. Anyways, To get this off, you're going to need a pass-through socket, and then either like a crescent wrench or some vice grips to hold this strut rod so that way it doesn't spin. So here I've got a 15 millimeter end wrench, and I tried to use the pass-through socket, but it wasn't going to work. But basically hold the rod with your vice grips like I got here, and then you'll be able to loosen this nut. Alright, so here is our new nut. I don't have the part number off the top of my head, but I will put it down in the description. But you can just begin to thread it on. Make sure you don't cross thread. And it'll thread on by hand, but then once you get to this nylon, you'll need to put your vice grips back on and then tighten it down. And then let me get the torque specs real quick. So the torque specs on this is 22 pound-feet. I don't have the special tools, so I can't really do that. So we'll just go off of feel for this, not the end of the world. So since I can't really go off torque spec or anything, this is about where the old nut was on the old one, and it feels roughly about 20 foot-pounds. But then at this point, you can go ahead and take your dust cap, and then just put it on. You just kind of want to line it up, and then it should click in here. There's just some little tabs. You just kind of work it in there like that, and then it's all secure, and then you're ready to put it back on the car. So I just noticed something. Our old bolts, which they look fine to reuse, they're longer than our new ones. So since the old ones are fine, I'm gonna still use them. I'm just gonna apply a little bit of thread locker. As you can see, there's some pink thread locker on there. But yeah, we'll reuse these ones because they're still looking pretty good. But yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, so I had to do a little bit of adjusting. I tried to put the bottom two bolts in first to hold it, but basically the control arm was just too high and it wasn't lining up to the mount correctly. So I had to lower my jack stand a bit. When you do that, just be very careful not to lower it too fast because you do not want that spring to come shooting out. But we're about where we need to be. And then I got my new, or rather old bolts. I'm just going to apply some Loctite to them and we'll get them in. And we'll get everything started before we go with the torque specs. Alright, so we got the bolts all started and everything. We just got to torque everything down. So the specs for the top bolts, those are going to be 76 pound-feet, and then the lowers will be 35 pound-feet. Alright guys, so car's back up in the air. I had a really difficult time getting that new bump stop on, but a little bit of silicone helped it kind of pop in easier. But then after that, all you need to do is take your new clips. This one is already threaded in for you, but then just take them and just put them back in the grommets where they belong. And then this final one, it just kind of goes up on the right height sensor like so, and then just slides in like that. And then just need to reconnect your sensor, and then it's the same procedure for the other side. Just obviously make sure you know which one's going where. And then obviously if you have the other side, you can double check. Also the valves kind of go back this way. Almost forgot to say, don't forget about your ride height sensor here after you get your new clip plugged in. Basically, it just kind of like before, you just go in, there's that little notch to help you line it up, and then I believe the torque spec for this is 10 foot-pounds, but let me check to be sure. Alright, I cannot find torque specs anywhere, but just go snug with it, and that's it. That's the end of this job. But yeah, no, then after that, you just need to recalibrate your ride height sensors, since you did install the new shocks, and I'll have a separate video for that since it's the same for the front, just using the 4-scan tool. But hope this helped you out, guys. If you liked the video and it helped you, give it a thumbs up. If you like the rest of the videos, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Have a good one, guys.